Today, protests mounting in major cities around the world in response to Israel's deadly strike on a tent camp of displaced Palestinians in Gaza. The Palestinian Ministry of Health says the attack on Sunday killed 45 people and injured 200 others, including women and children. And now a new CNN analysis of video obtained from the scene reveals the munitions that were used in that deadly strike were American-made. So far, the White House has not changed its policies, suggesting the attack does not cross President Biden's red line of a ground incursion. And for the first time, video geolocated by CNN shows two IDF tanks moving further west into Rafah. Joining us now are two former Biden political appointees who recently resigned from the administration over the Israel-Hamas war, Tariq Habash and Lily Greenberg Call. She is also the first Jewish political appointee to publicly resign. If you both can just comment on what you have seen from this strike in Rafah and what effect that you think it is having on people you are talking to within the Biden administration. Tariq?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it feels like there's a dam breaking. There are so many people who have been working within the system trying to speak through the proper channels about what they are witnessing and what they're seeing and how horrific it is, and that we are supplying these weapons. We're providing the financing for the ongoing violence against innocent Palestinian civilians. And I think people are realizing that no matter what they do or say, that their voice isn't being heard. And I think they're starting to reach the same conclusion, unfortunately, that I made and that Lily made.
So you think internally, top Biden political appointees are getting an earful from people within the administration, or do you think it's a minority?
I think that they're getting an earful. I think, unfortunately, you know, the culture within some of these agencies leans towards silence. You know, folks are afraid to speak up, but we know that people across government have been letting their superiors know for months that they, you know, disagree with this, that they think it's disastrous policy in so many different ways. And I'm sure what we saw over the weekend is only going to increase that.
What do you think when you hear from the White House that what we've seen in Rafah, why is this something different to you? Why do you think, obviously you disagree and think this should have crossed the president's red line?
I think, you know, the people, tanks rolling into West Rafah, people burning alive in their tents, I don't see how that is not an invasion. You know, I don't see how massacring 45 civilians, I think there was a strike recently that in the last, 12 hours that killed upwards of 20, that is an invasion. That is violence perpetuated on civilians, and it's U.S. weapons that are used to massacre innocent Palestinian civilians. So, Biden is breaking U.S. law right now by continuing to send weapons to a military that refuses to respect international human rights.
The White House is saying this actually was a more targeted weapon. We have now been able to identify what the weapon was. It is a more targeted bomb. Mm-hmm. And the Israelis have raised this possibility that it may have ignited a munitions store, a Hamas munitions store. I mean, what do you think when you hear that, Tariq?
I mean, I think it's just ridiculous. I think it's trying to redefine what the narrative is, and I think the reality is that we've seen massacre after massacre after massacre that has killed over 15,000 Palestinian children. We've seen over 36,000 Palestinians be killed in the last 8 months. I mean, it tears at your heartstrings. It is so heartbreaking just to continue to witness this happening and to know that our government is primarily responsible for providing the continuation of these weapons, that our government is simply using Israeli talking points to decide where they're going to draw lines or where they're going to redraw lines. It's inexcusable, and I think it's our obligation to continue to call out the president, to call out the administration, and to make sure that these weapons do not continue to be used in the name of Americans.
They've tried at times, as you know, to distance themselves while also saying that U.S. support of Israel defending itself is ironclad. There was that halting of the 2,000 and the 500-pound bombs. What do you think about that? This was a 250-pound bomb. What do you think about that distinction when you hear that? And what are you hearing from people inside of the administration?
I mean, I'm hearing that people are fed up. I think they're rightfully just at their ends of what they feel like they have been able to do. And I think, unfortunately, 250-pound bombs or 2,000-pound bombs, they're still killing dozens of children. Like, there is no circumstance where that is acceptable. Just because the bombs are smaller doesn't mean that they aren't hurting just as many people. If you use 50, 250-pound bombs that are continuing to kill civilians, they're still killing civilians. That's still against U.S. law, and it's still against international
Civilians who are
humanitarian laws.
in a refugee camp, right, that they were told is a safe zone. I mean, that I think is something to remember
these
here.
are people who have been forcibly displaced
Right.
from their homes already because there's nowhere else safe to go.
Let me ask you, because you are the two political appointees, right? Those are folks who at the end of an administration would leave. You've been appointed sort of by the administration itself. You're not career folks in your agencies that you were in, education, interior, respectively. Some folks in the Biden administration will look and say, this actually isn't that many people who are speaking out inside the administration. What do you say to that?
That every single person that I know thinks the same way as us. And whether or not they have felt empowered, as Tarek said, to make that public and to leave because of it is a different thing. But I think when the majority of the people on the inside feel that they are not being listened to, and the majority of the American people are not being listened to, I think that's a huge problem for the administration.
You brought up at the commercial break that other people are leaving more quietly. They're not coming out publicly the way you are. What types of agencies are we talking about when you say you know people internally who've just decided I'm getting out? How many people are we talking about? Where are they coming from?
I know there are dozens of people who have already left. They're coming from all over. I don't want to list out every single agency, but there are people who have left from the White House, or people who've left from agencies that are working directly on this and not working on this at all. I think people continue to witness what we've seen for months now, and it is hard to stomach just to watch it and feel helpless, but to know that you are representing this government and this administration that continues to make excuses for and justifications for the killing of Palestinian children. It's impossible for people to not feel guilty and to feel like they need to leave when they realize that they have no impact or influence.
Thank you so much to you both, Tarek Habash, Lily Greenberg Call. We appreciate your time today and for coming on into the studio. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.